everyone. Welcome to Her Voice, a collaboration between LifeStraw and Snooze that elevates stories about women in the outdoor industry as we continue working towards an equitable future. I'm your host, Denisha Jenkins, and today my guest is Monet.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. In case you don't know, Monet is a family travel blogger, a freelance travel writer, and she's the author of the children's book, The Traveling Child Goes to Rio de Janeiro. So for those who don't know you, Monet, could you tell us a little bit more about your vision and your motto?
Yeah, so I started The Traveling Child, my blog, back in 2016. It's all about inspiring parents to travel the world with their kids while making it affordable and easier. And our motto is if kids live there, kids can visit. You'll often find us traveling to destinations that most people don't find kid-friendly, but we'll always show you why they are.
So in your journey to traveling just confidently and safely, what are some of the fears or even the myths that you've had to confront or overcome?
So often I'm heard, oh, why are you traveling with your kids so young? They won't remember, or it's dangerous to travel with kids that young. My youngest daughter at 10 weeks old, my husband and I and my parents, we went to Colombia, to Cartagena and Medellin while I was on maternity leave. And we had such an amazing time. And the thing for us is, while the kids might not remember everything, we will. And these are memories that we'll have as their parents for the rest of their lives. And they have pictures that they can, look on when they are older. So it's just really important to us to have those experiences. My girls are 4 and 6, and they've been to 6 continents. So anything is possible if it's something that you really want to happen.
I really love how The Traveling Child as a blog, in addition to these trip itineraries that you offer, you really do give us some really cool lifestyle tips. And so I'm just curious, what is your favorite hack for caregivers or people who are traveling with kids?
So for me, it's snacks. Okay, snacks are the cure all for any meltdown with kids. Hangry kids are not fun. So I always have a backpack filled with snacks for them. But regardless of where you're going, just having things to entertain your kids and really involving them in the process of travel as much as possible. Obviously, depending on the age of your kids, they're not really going to be able to help with planning your itinerary, but my husband and I are really conscious of making sure the things that we're doing, they will love to do. So for instance, they love to cook and they love to dance. Every destination we go to, pretty much, we try to find a cooking class or a dance class that teaches us as adults and them as children about the country or the city's culture that we're visiting. But it's also something that they love to do. So in Brazil, we took a cooking class and we learned how to make their traditional dish of maqueca fish. And then when we were in Cuba, we learned how to do salsa dance and took a class there. And it's things that they're engaged with, but even us as adults are learning as much as they are.
I would love to be your 4-year-old or 6-year-old. That's amazing. You've talked about these variety of travel experiences, solo traveling and all of these things. Could you tell us a little bit about what's been your approach to this concept of safety when traveling as a solo traveler, and then in those instances where you're traveling with your family?
Yeah, so when we're traveling with the girls especially, we're always making sure that ahead of our trip that we know where the nearest hospital is, just in case anything is to happen. We know where that is. We also make sure that we do bring over-the-counter drugs with us, because the worst thing that can happen is if someone does get sick on a trip and it's something as simple as needing Tylenol that can help them. But if you're in a different country that speaks a different language, when you go to the pharmacy, if you're not able to communicate with them properly, you don't want to get the wrong thing. So we just like to bring that stuff with us. That way we at least have the basic. And for me personally, when I'm traveling solo, I also just have extra precautions. So buying additional locks, I have like an additional lock that I can put on whether an Airbnb, VRBO door, or a hotel, and also like a foot alarm. That way, if anyone tries to open the door, it's this massive sound that wakes me up, who will definitely scare someone else. But just making sure that those precautions I have in place.
The lock thing makes so much sense. I think as we've become the society of where we're sharing people's spaces, we're staying in people's homes, those types of small hacks are so easy to just pack in your backpack, take with you. It's just like a standard staple. So that was super helpful. This year, as we all know, has definitely put a damper on our travel, but it has also illuminated a lot of social issues that have gone unnoticed or effectively addressed. And it's just allowed us to really unpack cultural nuances and experiences. And it's really challenged people to be more vocal and collaborative. And so, for those who don't know, you're a founding member of a new organization called the Black Travel Alliance, affectionately known as BTA, which has been striving to create this world where Black people are supported and accurately represented, specifically in the travel industry. And as a leader in that space, what have been some of the challenges and maybe even some of the wins that you've witnessed or experienced in this effort to really drive necessary change in the industry?
For me, so a lot of the challenges are just the lack of diversity and inclusion. You mentioned my book, The Traveling Child Goes to Rio de Janeiro. And one of the reasons why I wrote that book was because if you type in family travel in Google Images, you will not see families that look like mine. Writing that book was a way for me to say, you know what, forget what Google Images says. Let me take our positive images off the internet and put them into a book that can diversify, the bookshelves of different families. For the Black Travel Alliance, it's really for us to challenge travel brands in the industry so there isn't tokenism. So we are getting equal opportunity. On Blackout Tuesday, which kind of sparked BTA, was there's all these brands that were posting Black squares, but behind the scenes is what's most important. You can post as many Black squares as you want on Instagram, but internally, if you don't have diversity and inclusion within your organization, those sitting at in the desk, and then you don't have that in your marketing and in who you choose to work with when it comes to an influencer space, the Black squares really don't mean much. For us in BTA, it's really for us to challenge these brands to talk. They're saying something, but really have the actions behind that and calling it out, because you have to know it's a problem in order to fix it. And then also being able to collaborate with them to work on ways to improve, themselves in the different categories that we outlined.
And that's so powerful too, right? Because part of feeling safe in a space is this sense of being welcomed and belonging, right? And so when we're talking about women and feeling that the outdoor industry and like making space for our voices, how we represent people in our marketing and the conversations absolutely makes us more, well, not just open-minded, but more receptive to seeing different kinds of people and places. We're more welcoming. It's not out of the blue. It's not abnormal to us, right? And so that's really a powerful point you made about your book, right? Those are introductions to different cultures. And so if we're caregivers, if we're moms who are professionals, if we're working, those types of small tools are going to make a big impact. I love that Maya Angelou always says, when you know better, you do better, right? And so we want this series overall to really just bring this awareness, but also call us to use our voices, right? To listen to different voices and to use them for the betterment of all women in this space. And so based on your experiences, what does it look like for individuals who are in this space, who also love to travel, who are not a part of those communities, and then also for like outdoor travel brands? What does it look like for both of those groups to be authentic in their support and to be authentic disruptors and advocates for safety and for inclusion for Black women in this travel space?
When you're no longer checking off a box and you're doing things because that's how your organization runs, to me, that's when it's genuine and when it's authentic. For me and my family, whether that's me by myself or with my husband and my kids, we RV, we camp, we do all of these outdoor things, and there's so many others that do the same thing. But again, when you look at the advertising and the marketing of a lot of brands, we're left out, and there was this big push again after Blackout Tuesday, where a lot of brands did begin to post, now Black people doing these activities. But if you're only posting it when there's social injustices going on, that's not it being a living and breathing part of your organization. And that's all that we're looking for.
That's a really good point, right? Because authenticity, I think, I can't remember who I've heard it from, and they were just talking about like when you make an apology, the best apology is change behavior. So when we're talking about, our goal for this series, and as we continue to bring up more topics as a community, as the outdoor industry, we really want to figure out, how do we show up and keep showing up? How do we make space for these different experiences and conversations like you're sharing with us, that people can feel comfortable telling us the real experience and receiving that. And then the question is on us, what do we do with that, right? How do we as individual contributors, with our dollars or with our branding, marketing budgets, how do we make sure we're bringing the right, lots of different people, lots of different voices to the table to help guide us on what to do, instead of just making those decisions in a silo, right? You have to be in relationship and true community to make it a more safe and inclusive space. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that. And I agree with you. It is very fun watching you. I saw you and your family just took a road trip not too long ago, seeing you all outside. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to do an Airstream very soon, just because I saw you doing it, right? And so it's just as simple as that, of becoming partners in the adventures you're going on and supporting your posts. It's going to really change that perspective of what it looks like to be women in this space, to be professionals in this space. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you sharing your story, your family with us. Please let everyone know how they can find you, how they can connect with you.
Thank you so much for having me. You guys can find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Traveling Child. And our website is www.thetravelingchild.co.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode of Her Voice. And shout out to our partner, LifeStraw, for making these conversations possible. Stay tuned for more episodes as we chat with women from all corners of the industry. Take care.